When God marks a soul, it is not with ink that fades, nor with paint that can be washed away. It is as if a flame is pressed into wax, leaving a seal that cannot be removed, only revealed, and once that seal is upon you, the world cannot look away. Even those who do not understand why will find their eyes drawn to you, as men are drawn to a light in a dark valley. We live in an age where many are desperate to be noticed, to be seen, to be followed. But the mark of God is not something you earn with noise or performance. It is not won by applause, nor built with reputation. It comes quietly, like dawn breaking over the horizon, and when it comes, it sets you apart. Not higher, not lower apart, different in a way that unsettles the comfortable and comforts the unsettled. Do not mistake this mark for mere favor, as though it were given for your enjoyment alone. It is a calling. Those who watch you are not always there to cheer. Many are there to test, to doubt, even to mock. Yet their attention is proof that something eternal has touched your life. They do not know it, but what they are drawn to is not you, but the one who stamped his image upon you with new fire. You may wonder why you feel the weight of eyes upon you when you did not seek the stage, but understand this: a candle cannot choose whether others see its flame. It burns, and the darkness notices, so too with you. The mark of God is not hidden in silence, it shines, whether you wish it or not. Some ill watch hoping you stumble, because your fall would justify their unbelief. Others will watch hoping you rise, because your rising proves their hope was not in vain. Still, others will watch with confusion, unable to explain why they care, why their gaze keeps returning to you. Do not fear any of them, for the mark upon you is not meant to be erased by their opinions, nor strengthened by their applause. Remember, even the most ordinary life, once touched by God, ceases to be ordinary. Once marked, you are living evidence of something greater than yourself. That is why they watch, because in you they glimpse a story larger than their own. So walk carefully, not in fear but in reverence. You were not marked to entertain them, nor to impress them, but to point beyond yourself. Every step you take is read like a page in a book they cannot put down. And when they finish reading you, may they see not the shadow of a human striving for attention, but the imprint of the author himself. For when God marks you, you carry both burden and glory. And though many will not understand, they will not be able to stop watching. Because deep down they are not watching you at all, they are watching for him. The mark of God is not earned but bestowed, a seal that cannot be erased. The mark of God is not earned but bestowed, a seal that cannot be erased, and the very nature of this truth overturns how most of us have been taught to see our lives. We are conditioned to believe that all value must be earned, that worth is tied to achievement, that recognition is the result of climbing ladders and proving ourselves again and again. Yet the mark of God is not like the medals men wear on their coats or the trophies they display on shelves, for those can be lost, broken, forgotten, or replaced. The divine seal comes not because of striving, but because of choosing, not because you reached toward heaven, but because heaven stooped toward you. It is a bestowal, quiet and sovereign, a gesture of love from the Creator to the created, and once it has been given, it cannot be undone by the hands of time or the voices of those who oppose you. Consider what it means to be marked not by effort but by grace. It means that the deepest identity you carry is not one that you manufactured for yourself, but one that was placed upon you before you even understood its weight. A man can change his occupation, his possessions, even his name, but he cannot unmark what God has sealed. And though the world may not immediately recognize that seal, though you may not fully understand its shape or purpose, it is there all the same. It is what sets you apart in rooms where no one knows your history. It is what causes some to pause and look at you longer than they intended. It is what whispers quietly in your spirit when you are tempted to believe you are only ordinary. To be marked is to be chosen, but not in the shallow sense that the world defines as favoritism or privilege. It is not a mark that spares you from trials, nor does it exempt you from the common hardships of life. On the contrary, the mark often draws trials to you, as a magnet draws filings of iron, but even in this the mark holds firm. It cannot be rubbed away by criticism or washed away by failure. The mistakes you make do not peel it from your soul. The voices that rise against you do not silence the one who placed it upon you. And in this permanence lies both comfort and calling. Comfort because you cannot lose it, calling because you must live in light of it. Many live their lives exhausting themselves in the pursuit of recognition, believing that the gaze of others validates their existence. They toil to earn applause, to earn position, to earn the right to be seen. Yet the mark of God turns this upside down. You are already seen, already known, already stamped with a reality deeper than any earthly title, and that changes the way you walk. You need not compete for what is already yours. You need not clamor for the fleeting approval of men when the eternal seal rests upon you. This does not mean you cease to work, to labor, to strive for excellence, but that you work from identity rather than for identity. Think of a child who receives an inheritance not because of his labor, but because of his birthright. He may grow, he may stumble, he may wander, but the inheritance remains his, not because of performance, but because of position. So it is with the mark of God. It is not wages for service rendered. It is not a medal for battles fought. It is a gift, undeserved yet irrevocable. And knowing this frees you from the tyranny of comparison. No longer do you need to measure yourself against the shadows of others, for the mark on you is not theirs, and the mark on them is not yours. Each seal is unique, each one chosen, and no counterfeit can ever replace the genuine stamp of the divine. Some resist this truth because it offends their pride. They want to believe they have earned every blessing, that their righteousness has purchased favor, that their labor has forced the hand of God. Yet grace remains grace, and the seal remains gift. And if it is gift, then no man may boast. If it is gift, then no man may disqualify another. If it is gift, then your failures, though real, cannot erase what was not placed there by your power to begin with. You may tarnish it in the eyes of others, you may forget its weight in moments of despair, but the mark itself is not erased. It remains as steady as the hand that set it upon you. There are those who will question the mark, who will deny its reality, who will say it cannot exist because they do not see it with their eyes. They will measure you by worldly standards and say you are unremarkable. They will hold up your flaws as evidence that you are no different than they are, but the blindness of men does not determine the truth of God. The sun does not cease to burn because a man closes his eyes to it. In the same way, the mark remains even if the world chooses not to acknowledge it. And sometimes what they resist most fiercely is what they sense most deeply, that something about you has been touched by a hand beyond their comprehension. Do not despise the seal upon you, nor treat it lightly. It is a sacred thing, a holy appointment. The mark of God is not a decoration to polish, but a destiny to carry. It signifies not only that you belong to Him, but that He intends to use you as a vessel through which His light might fall upon others. This is why some cannot look away. They are not watching simply because of who you are, but because the seal upon you stirs something they cannot name. It unsettles them, challenges them, sometimes even angers them, because it confronts the deepest hunger of their souls, the hunger to be chosen, to be seen, to be loved beyond condition. The permanence of this mark should not lull you into complacency, but call you into responsibility. To carry the seal is to carry the weight of representation. Others will measure the reality of God through the reflection they see in you. This is not to crush you with impossible pressure, but to remind you that your life has consequence beyond itself. You are not an isolated story, you are a living testimony written for the eyes of others. And though you may not always understand why God chose you, though you may not always feel worthy of His mark, your task is not to explain the mystery, but to live faithfully within it. For the mark of God is not earned but bestowed, a seal that cannot be erased, and this simple truth is both your anchor in storms and your compass in confusion. It grounds you when accusations rise, reminding you that you did not place the mark on yourself, and so you cannot remove it. It steadies you when doubts whisper, reminding you that your worth is not tied to shifting feelings but to an unchanging decree. It guides you when the path is unclear, reminding you that the one who mocked you has also mapped the road ahead. And so, when you feel the weight of unseen eyes upon you, when you sense that you are being watched more than you wish, remember this: it is not about performance but presence, not about proving but bearing. The seal upon you has made you a living witness, not to your own strength, but to the one whose hand rests upon your life. And while the world struggles to understand why it cannot look away, you know the reason. The mark was never theirs to give, and it will never be theirs to erase. When God marks you, the world cannot look away. Even your silence becomes a testimony. When God marks you, the world cannot look away. Even your silence becomes a testimony, for the seal he places on your life is not dependent on volume, performance, or constant display. It radiates in ways you cannot measure, drawing the gaze of others without your invitation, pulling attention even when you had no intention of standing in the center. There is a power in being chosen that transcends explanation, and once that divine choice rests upon you, the eyes of people cannot help but linger. Some watch in wonder, others in doubt, still others in jealousy, yet all are compelled by something beyond themselves, something that speaks from your life without words. The silence of a marked soul speaks louder than the speeches of kings. When you carry God's seal, even in your stillness, even in your retreat from noise, there is a resonance that flows outward, a quiet witness that unsettles the complacent and comforts the weary. People may not know what it is they see, but they know they cannot ignore it. They may not understand why your presence shifts the atmosphere, why your very being carries a weight, but the mark is not for their understanding, it is for their witnessing. God does not need your endless noise to prove his hand is upon you. He needs only the quiet certainty that his presence does not depart when your lips are closed. There is a mystery here, for men often equate influence with sound, with activity, with being constantly seen and constantly speaking. Yet some of the greatest works of God happen in silence. The seed makes no noise when it splits open beneath the soil, but that quiet breaking ushers in new life. The dawn does not announce itself with thunder, but its light awakens the world. In the same way, when God mocks you, even your unseen moments, even your restrained words, even your choice not to defend yourself, can resound with a voice louder than shouting. The silence itself becomes an echo of heaven, and that echo calls the attention of those who might never have listened to your words. When the world watches you in silence, it reveals the difference between recognition and revelation. Recognition is when people see your actions and form opinions. Revelation is when they see your essence and cannot look away. Recognition fades quickly, dependent on performance and achievements, but revelation lingers, demanding that people wrestle with the mystery of what they see. They sense that your stillness hides more than noise ever could, that your restraint carries more power than argument, and that something beyond you is speaking through you without sound. That is why they watch and keep watching, even when you give them nothing to watch for. Silence is not emptiness when you are marked, it is fullness concealed. The silence of the marked is not passive, it is potent. It is not a lack of expression, but a channel of expression too deep for words. Others may misinterpret it, confusing your silence for weakness, indifference, or hesitation, but those with eyes to see will feel its weight. Your silence says, I am held by something greater. I am not compelled to prove myself before men because I am already approved by God. And even those who oppose you cannot shake the sense that your stillness is not born of fear but of certainty. Those who watch you may not admit it, but they are learning something they did not expect. That presence itself can be testimony. You do not need to always argue your worth, defend your calling, or fight for visibility. The mark upon you has already placed you in sight, and no one can turn their eyes from what God Himself has highlighted. Even when you step aside, even when you go unnoticed in the eyes of the world, even when you choose to walk quietly rather than march loudly, something about your life draws attention as iron to a magnet. They see not because you sought to be seen, but because the one who mocked you has made you a signpost, and even in silence you point beyond yourself. Understand that being watched is not always pleasant. The gaze of the world is not always friendly. Some watch out of curiosity, some out of admiration, but many watch hoping to see cracks in your foundation. They hope your silence means defeat, that your stillness means surrender, that your quiet is proof of emptiness. But they misread the reality, for in the silence of the marked there is strength gathering, there is clarity forming, there is divine preparation at work. Your refusal to rush and prove yourself leaves them confused, because they do not understand how someone can rest when accused, how someone can stay calm when provoked, how someone can remain still while being scrutinized. Yet this very posture becomes your loudest testimony. Think of how often God has used silence as his chosen language. The heavens declare his glory without words, the stars burn in speechless brilliance, and still men look up in awe. The cross itself spoke volumes not because of shouted retaliation, but because of silent endurance. It was not in defending, but in surrendering, that the mark of redemption was sealed forever. So too in your life, silence does not mean absence. It means alignment with the one who speaks most powerfully in stillness. And this is why the world cannot look away, because your silence carries the weight of eternity, because something in it exposes the fragility of all their noise. There will be times when you feel burdened by being watched, when you wish you could slip into anonymity, when you crave invisibility, but the mark upon you does not permit it. Even when you hide, the mark glows. Even when you retreat, the mark calls, and though you may long to be overlooked, the eyes of others are drawn, not by your doing, but by God's design. This is not punishment, but purpose. It is not meant to overwhelm you, but to remind you that your life is not only for yourself. You are a vessel of testimony, and sometimes that testimony speaks best through silence. In this strange paradox lies your calling. The less you strive to be seen, the more they see you. The less you force yourself to be heard, the more your silence speaks. This is the divine reversal, that what the world dismisses as weakness becomes strength, that what the world calls emptiness becomes fullness, that what the world overlooks becomes impossible to ignore. You are not watched because of your performance, but because of the presence that has marked you. And no matter how still you remain, no matter how silent your lips, the mark is loud enough to echo through every room you enter. Their watching is not about you, it is about the one whose image shines through you. Their watching is not about you, it is about the one whose image shines through you. And this is the mystery that so often confuses both those who observe and those who are observed. You may wonder why attention finds you when you did not ask for it, why people notice details of your life when you would rather go unnoticed, why eyes linger on you in ways that feel undeserved. It is not because of your talent alone, not because of your personality, not even because of your struggles. It is because the mark of God reflects something greater than yourself, and when people watch you, what holds their gaze is not your shadow, but his light refracted through you. This truth can be both humbling and heavy, for it dismantles the illusion that the story is centered on you. You are not the main actor, but the stage upon which something eternal is displayed. Your victories are not yours to boast of, your scars are not yours to hide in shame, your progress is not yours to parade. Each of these things becomes a window through which others glimpse the hand of the one who set his seal upon you. They are watching because your life has become a canvas, painted not only with your choices, but with the brushstrokes of divine purpose. And even when the strokes appear rough or unfinished, there is beauty that cannot be ignored. This explains why some who watch you feel drawn and others feel disturbed. For those who hunger for truth, your life becomes a beacon, however faint or flawed, pointing to the source of that light. For those who resist truth, your life unsettles them, reminding them of what they try so hard to ignore. They cannot easily explain why they are fascinated by you, why they find themselves returning again to see how you endure, how you rise, how you continue despite adversity. They think it is curiosity about you, but it is really hunger for him, and whether they admit it or not, something in your life reflects a glory that belongs only to God. It is important to recognize this, for otherwise you may be tempted either to take credit or to take offense. If you imagine their watching is about you, you may grow prideful, thinking you have done something to command attention. If you assume their watching is about you, you may also grow bitter, resenting the scrutiny and feeling burdened by the weight of expectation. But when you see clearly that their gaze is drawn not to you but through you, then both pride and bitterness lose their power. You no longer need to boast, for the glory is not yours. You no longer need to resent, for the purpose is not about your comfort. You are free to live faithfully without being crushed by the gaze of others, because you know it is not you they ultimately see. Think of a stained glass window. On its own, the glass looks dull, opaque, fragmented into odd shapes that seem without meaning. But when light streams through, suddenly the design appears, colors blaze, and beauty emerges. Yet the glass itself cannot boast of brilliance, for without the light it remains unimpressive. Nor can the glass resent being looked at, for it was crafted to let light pass through. So too with your life, people watch not because the glass itself is extraordinary, but because the light streaming through it reveals a beauty they cannot deny. There is also a weight of responsibility in this, because you carry the reflection of something sacred. What others see in you will shape their understanding of the one who mocked you. When they witness your patience in trial, they begin to wonder about the God who sustains you. When they see your humility in success, they glimpse the God who gives without inflating pride. When they notice your forgiveness in betrayal, they confront a love they cannot explain. In this way, every response, every choice, every posture becomes more than personal. It becomes revelatory, and while this may feel daunting, it is also profoundly meaningful. Your life is not small if it points beyond itself, even in the simplest moments. This is why silence, action, and even failure all carry weight. Your silence becomes testimony because it suggests confidence in God rather than desperation for validation. Your action becomes testimony because it flows not from self-exaltation, but from obedience to a higher call. Even your failure becomes testimony, not because failure is admirable, but because how you rise again reveals the mercy and strength of the one who lifts you. People watch, and through watching they learn something of him, whether or not they ever acknowledge it openly. It also explains why opposition often intensifies once God's mark is upon you. For some, your life is not just intriguing but irritating, because it exposes what they do not want exposed. Your light reveals their shadows, and rather than turn toward the light, they may lash out against the vessel carrying it. Yet even here, their hostility is less about you and more about the one who shines through you. They are not fighting your name, they are resisting his. They are not questioning your worth, they are questioning his presence. And while this may cause you pain, it also affirms that the reflection is real, for only what is real provokes such strong reactions. If you were only ordinary in the shallow sense, they would pass you by. If you were only striving for self, they might applaud you or ignore you, but they would not feel compelled to watch so closely. What holds their gaze is something they cannot reduce to explanation. It is why some will admire and imitate you, while others will criticize and slander you. Both reactions reveal the same truth: the mark has made you visible, but not for your sake. This realization also protects your heart from the trap of people pleasing. When you know the watching is not about you, you are free from the exhausting chase of trying to satisfy everyone's expectations. You no longer bend your life to earn their approval, because their gaze was never yours to control in the first place. Instead, you bend your life toward faithfulness to the one who mocked you, trusting that if he is seen in you, then the watching has served its purpose regardless of how others interpret it. And so the paradox deepens. The more you understand that it is not about you, the more they see him in you. The less you strive to be the focus, the more their eyes are drawn to the source of your light. You become a vessel emptied of self and filled with presence, and that presence is what arrests their attention. They may not be able to articulate it, but they know they are seeing something more than human strength, more than human endurance, more than human wisdom. And though they may resist admitting it, they are catching glimpses of God in you. A candle does not choose to be seen. It simply burns and the darkness notices. A candle does not choose to be seen. It simply burns, and the darkness notices, and in this simple truth lies the essence of what it means to be marked by God. The flame does not strive to draw eyes toward itself, nor does it whisper to the shadows, "Look at me." Its task is not to manage who watches or who ignores. Its only responsibility is to burn. And in burning, light appears, and in light, the surrounding darkness is pushed back. So it is with a life touched by God. The one who bears his mark is not called to orchestrate attention or orchestrate applause, but simply to remain faithful in burning. The notice of others is not earned. It is the natural consequence of light existing in a place where darkness had grown accustomed to ruling. This metaphor is so easily overlooked because it is so simple. We imagine that for a person to draw attention, they must make noise, create spectacle, or chase visibility, but light needs none of this. Even the smallest flame in the deepest cave arrests the eyes and refuses to be ignored. No one needs to be told to notice it. Sight itself is drawn to it. In the same way, when God's presence is alive within a person, there is no need for them to trumpet their importance. Their very existence radiates something that cannot be hidden, and the world around them cannot help but respond. The attention that follows is not about striving, it is about the unavoidable consequence of shining. Yet the candle also reminds us of vulnerability. A flame is delicate, and from a distance it may appear fragile, easily extinguished by a breath of wind. And so it is with those marked by God. To the watching world, your life may seem too ordinary, too weak, too simple to matter. They may look at you and think that one small flame cannot possibly make a difference in the vastness of the night. But what they underestimate is the stubborn persistence of light. Darkness, no matter how vast, cannot swallow even the tiniest spark. A single flame is enough to change how the eye perceives an entire room. Your life marked by God may seem fragile, but its impact is disproportionate to its size. You may feel small, but even in that smallness, you carry illumination that darkness cannot overcome. The candle also teaches us about sacrifice. To burn is to be consumed, to give of oneself so that light may shine. In the same way, when you are marked by God, your life becomes more than self-preservation. There will be moments when obedience feels costly, when faithfulness requires you to give up what others cling to, when bearing the light means carrying a weight others would rather avoid. Yet this very sacrifice is what makes your life luminous. Just as wax diminishes and wick shortens, your willingness to be consumed by purpose is what makes you radiant in the eyes of those who watch. They may not articulate it, but they sense it. Your light costs you something, and because it costs, it carries authenticity. Another lesson from the candle is this: it does not choose its surroundings. It cannot decide whether it will burn in a palace or a hovel, in a cathedral or a dungeon, in the midst of celebration or in the silence of solitude. Wherever it is placed, it does what it was made to do. It shines, and so it is with you. The mark of God does not guarantee ideal circumstances. You may find yourself shining in places you never imagined, in settings you would not have chosen, among people who neither understand nor appreciate you. But the purpose remains unchanged. Light is not diminished by the unworthiness of its surroundings. Indeed, the darker the place, the more noticeable the flame. Those who watch you may not even know why their eyes are drawn, but it is because in the place of their darkness, your light has become unavoidable. The candle also holds a paradox. It does not announce its power, yet it wields authority. Without speaking, it changes what others can see. Without moving, it changes how others move. People who enter a darkened space filled with candles walk differently, with more caution, with more reverence, with more awareness of their steps. In the same way, your life marked by God may not roar with noise, but it alters the atmosphere of those around you. People behave differently in your presence, sometimes without even realizing why. They feel a weight, a clarity, a conviction, or a peace that is not explained by you alone. It is the authority of light, subtle yet undeniable, and they cannot escape its influence, and yet the candle is humble. It does not boast of the darkness it has driven away, nor does it measure its worth by how many eyes are fixed upon it. It simply burns. In this humility lies the secret of those who are truly marked by God. They do not live to be admired, though admiration may come. They do not strive to be noticed, though notice may follow. They are content to burn, content to be faithful, content to let the light that is not their own flow through them. Their humility makes their witness even stronger, for the world is not drawn to arrogance but to authenticity. There will also be those who resent the candle. Darkness is comfortable to those whose eyes have adjusted to it, and light can feel intrusive, unwelcome, even offensive. Some will shield their faces, some will try to blow the flame out, some will grumble that it shines too brightly. And in your life this resistance will come. People may criticize you, dismiss you, or attempt to silence you, but their resistance is not proof that your light is failing. It is proof that it is working. Darkness resists what threatens it, and resistance is itself an acknowledgement of power. The candle does not respond to such resistance by dimming itself. It continues to burn unwavering, and so must you. And in all of this, the most profound truth remains. The candle does not choose to be seen. Its nature is to shine. Whether the room is filled with eyes or empty, whether the light is admired or despised, whether it is celebrated or opposed, it continues in its task. This is the calling of the marked soul. Your task is not to control perception, not to orchestrate attention, not to determine who watches and who does not. Your task is simply to burn, to remain faithful, to let the light that God has placed within you do what it was meant to do. The darkness will notice. It has no choice. Being marked is both a burden and a glory. You are read like a living book of God's story. Being marked is both a burden and a glory. You are read like a living book of God's story, and every page of your life is turned by eyes you may never know. This paradox is difficult to carry, for the weight of attention is heavy, yet the privilege of being chosen is profound. You cannot separate the two, for the glory of being marked is always accompanied by the burden of being watched, and the burden of being watched is what makes the glory visible. To be marked is to exist in a space where your life ceases to belong only to yourself. It becomes a testimony, a narrative unfolding before an audience that stretches beyond your comprehension. The burden comes first to mind, for it is the part you feel most sharply. To be watched means to live without the refuge of anonymity, to know that even small decisions can ripple into the perceptions of others. It is the pressure of scrutiny, the fear of misunderstanding, the weight of expectations that you never volunteered to carry. People may misread your motives, misinterpret your silences, magnify your failures, and overlook your sacrifices. They may hold you to standards they do not hold themselves, for they see not only you, but the one they suspect is behind you. And in their watching, you may sometimes feel trapped, as though your life has been placed on a stage you did not build, and under a spotlight you did not ask for. This is the burden, and it is real. Yet alongside the burden, there is the glory. For what is the mark of God, if not a declaration that your life has significance beyond itself? You are not drifting through existence without purpose. You are a vessel of meaning. To be marked is to be entrusted, to be called into a story far larger than your own, to be woven into a narrative that began before you and will continue after you. The glory is not in being admired, but in being chosen to carry something eternal. And though the eyes upon you may sometimes feel invasive, they are proof that your life has become a signpost pointing beyond yourself. You are not merely living, you are communicating. A book is not written for itself, but for others to read. The ink on its pages tells a story that reveals truths to those who open it. So it is with you. The experiences you endure, the victories you win, the losses you grieve, the lessons you learn, all of these are words inscribed on the pages of your life. People may not read them in the way you intend. They may skip chapters or misunderstand the plot. Yet still they read, and in reading, they encounter something of God's hand moving across the narrative. Some will read with delight, some with skepticism, some with resentment, but all will find themselves face to face with a story that carries weight beyond ordinary life. This dual reality, burden and glory, requires humility. For if you see only the glory, you may fall into pride, imagining that you are the author of the story and not merely the page. You may begin to think the eyes upon you are drawn by your brilliance alone. Such pride blinds you to the true source and corrupts the testimony meant to shine through you. On the other hand, if you see only the burden, you may fall into despair, resenting the watchful eyes and wishing to retreat from the calling. You may be tempted to extinguish the light within you, to tear the pages of your book, to escape the responsibility of influence. But both extremes are distortions. The truth lies in holding both together, that the burden keeps you humble and the glory keeps you faithful. Every story worth reading contains both struggle and triumph, both suffering and joy. If your life were only easy, it would not reflect the full depth of God's working. If your life were only hardship, it would not reveal His victory. The beauty of being marked is that your life carries both, and through both, His image shines more clearly. When you endure pain with grace, readers glimpse His strength. When you rejoice with humility, they glimpse His kindness. When you forgive, they see His mercy. When you persist, they see His faithfulness. Your story is not about presenting perfection. It is about revealing the character of the one who carries you through imperfection. There is also a hidden kindness in the fact that you are read like a book. For those who cannot yet hear God's voice directly, your life becomes a translation they can understand. Your actions, your patience, your choices, all serve as paragraphs and chapters through which they begin to glimpse truths they had never encountered before. You may feel the burden of this responsibility, but consider also the glory of it, that in simply living faithfully you become a witness, a teacher, a reflection of eternal reality without ever stepping into a pulpit or writing a sermon. The sermon is your life, and its words are written in deeds rather than ink. The tension of being marked also reminds you that you do not belong to yourself alone. You are bound to a higher purpose, to a larger audience, to an eternal author who continues to write your story even when you do not understand the plot. This means your private moments matter as much as your public ones. It means that what you choose when no one seems to be watching is as much a testimony as what you do when every eye is on you. For the truth is that there is never a moment when the book is closed. The pages are always open, being read not only by human eyes but by heavenly ones as well. And though this may feel overwhelming, it is also liberating. You do not need to invent your story, you only need to live the one being written. You do not need to control how others interpret it, you only need to remain faithful to the author. You cannot dictate which chapters they linger on or which they skip, but you can trust that the story as a whole will bear witness to Him. The burden teaches you surrender, the glory teaches you gratitude, and together they form a life that is radiant in ways beyond your understanding. So being marked is both a burden and a glory. It asks much of you, for it demands that your life be open, transparent, vulnerable to the eyes of others. Yet it gives much more, for it means that your life carries eternal weight, that you are not invisible, that you are not meaningless. The very fact that others read you is proof that the author has inscribed something worth reading. You may never see the full impact of your story, but the eyes that watch are being shaped, challenged, inspired, unsettled, or comforted by what they read in you. And though you carry the weight of the burden, you also carry the radiance of the glory, inseparably woven together in the mystery of being marked.